I know you want to fly. I don't wanna walk away, wait till we faster. Walking straight without Chester.
Okay. There you go. All right, I'm Lieutenant Colonel retired Jason Jackson. I was a B-1 Weapon Systems Officer. I was an aide de camp. I was a strategic planner in the Pentagon at the Headquarters Air Force. Commander twice of Tactical Air Control Party units, and a war planner down at CENTCOM in MacDill Air Force Base.
All right. My name is Lieutenant Colonel retired Charlotte Jackson. I was a C-9 pilot and a C-130 pilot in the Air Force. Then I became an Air Force reservist and was an airlift execution and planning officer while in the reserves. And then I became a pilot for SkyWest, flew the CRJ 200, 700, and 900. And now I fly for Delta as a first officer on the 757 and 767. So when it comes to becoming a fighter pilot versus a heavy pilot or a tanker pilot in the Air Force, I can give you perspective on when I went through pilot training. After you go through, so pilot training is divided into your T-37, which is the Tweet, which is
T-6s
now. I was going to say I was in T-37s. It's now T-6s. Everybody flies the T-6 for half, about 6 months, and then that's where you branch off and you either go towards the T-1s and the heavies, or you go to the T-38s and become a fighter pilot. And that, you fill out your dream sheet and you put your wish list down, and it's all based on the needs of the Air Force. If the Air Force has a lot of fighter pilot openings, then you might have 25, 50% of your class get fighters and 50 of your class get heavies. But other times there were only, I remember a little bit before my class, there were only 5 out of 30 were fighters. So it was very small percentage. And that changes every year. Nobody has the crystal ball on that. So that percentage is completely driven. And then you are ranked 1 through 30 in your class. Number 1 will most likely, they will rack and stack you. And then number 1 gets his first choice, number 2, and it goes from there. So that's how it works in pilot training. So the percentage is completely based on the needs.
So I'll add to that story. While I was going through NAV school, I had an instructor who was a graduate of the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Program. We call it INJEPT in the Air Force, and it's in Shepherd Air Force Base at Wichita Falls. The individuals selected at the time to go to INJEPT were the best of the best coming out of Air Force Academy, ROTC, OTS. They were the best of the best. Pretty much guaranteed 95% or better selection to fighters. And their entire training syllabus was based off of flying with fighter pilots from the U.S. and all of our NATO allies. They had instructors here also. My instructor just happened to hit that point in time in the Air Force's needs where his entire class flew cargo or tankers. They all went number 1 aviator out of college, Air Force Academy, did not matter. But the needs of the Air Force when they graduated said, sorry, there are no fighters. So lo and behold, they all wound up flying heavies. And there were some bitter individuals. But as Charlotte said, it becomes a mathematic requirement as the years go on. It's driven by money. It's driven by number of airplanes we have. We used to have more fighters 10 years ago than we do now. 20 years ago, we had a lot more fighters. So there were a lot more seats to fill from the pilot's perspective. So now I would say it's probably a little bit more difficult to pick up a fighter just because the requirements are less. But it's always hard to become a fighter pilot anyway because of the competitiveness of being number 1, number 2, number 3 in your class and being able to select exactly what you wanted.